Hey Gemini, I need to talk to you about something incredibly specific that has been showing up in your energy. And when I pulled these cards today, the story they are telling is so clear and so intense that I actually had to pause for a moment. If you have been through a situation where someone came at you hard, where someone essentially declared war on you, whether that was through betrayal, public attack, spreading lies, sabotage, or just actively working against you, and then they walked away from the wreckage they caused seeming totally fine, maybe even laughing or celebrating like they had won some kind of victory. This reading is absolutely for you. So before we get into the specific cards, I want you to think about who this might be for you. This could be an ex-partner who betrayed you and moved on quickly like nothing happened. This could be a former friend who turned on you and tried to destroy your reputation. This could be a family member who chose sides against you in a conflict. This could be a coworker who sabotaged you or took credit for your work. Whoever this is, the energy signature is very specific because these were people who did not just passively hurt you or drift away naturally. These were people who actively chose to come against you, who weaponized something against you, who felt like they were winning when they saw you in pain. The first card I pulled for you is the Ten of Swords, and when this card shows up in a reading about someone else's situation, about someone who hurt you, it is showing me complete and total defeat, absolute rock bottom, a painful ending that leaves no room for denial or avoidance. The Ten of Swords is that moment when everything falls apart all at once, when all the chickens come home to roost, as they say, when someone can no longer avoid the consequences of their actions and the full weight of what they have done comes crashing down on them. What I find really interesting about this card appearing for the person or people who hurt you is that this is not a gentle lesson. This is not a soft correction from the universe. This is the universe saying enough is enough and allowing the full weight of karmic debt to come due all at once. You need to understand something really important here. When someone hurts you deliberately, when someone attacks you and walks away laughing, they are essentially writing a check that their soul will have to cash at some point. The universe does not operate on our human timeline. It does not respond to our sense of urgency about when justice should happen, but it is always working in the background, keeping perfect records of energetic exchanges between people. Every action creates an equal and opposite reaction, not just in physics, but in the metaphysical realm as well. And what the Ten of Swords is showing me is that the equal and opposite reaction to what they did to you is now manifesting in their reality in absolutely devastating ways. Let me paint you a picture of what this actually looks like, because the Ten of Swords is not subtle. This is someone whose life is falling apart in multiple areas simultaneously. Where they once felt powerful and in control, they now feel completely powerless and out of control. Where they once had confidence and maybe even arrogance, they now have anxiety and fear about what else might go wrong. The Ten of Swords often indicates that this person has been experiencing one blow after another, and just when they think things cannot possibly get worse, another problem emerges, another foundation crumbles, another person walks away from them. This could be showing up in their relationships where the same patterns that they used against you are now being used against them by someone else. Karma has a way of teaching us through experience what we refuse to learn through empathy. This could be showing up in their career or finances where doors that were once open are now mysteriously closed, opportunities that seemed guaranteed are now falling through, stability that they took for granted is now crumbling beneath their feet. This could be showing up in their mental and emotional health, where they are being forced to confront parts of themselves that they have been running from for years, where the mask they wore so confidently is now slipping, and they have to see their own shadow self staring back at them in the mirror. What makes the Ten of Swords particularly intense is that this represents rock bottom. This is the floor. This is the point where someone cannot go any lower because they have hit absolute defeat in whatever area this is manifesting for them. And I want you to understand that this is not coming out of nowhere. This has been building for a long time. What you are seeing now, what they are experiencing now, is the culmination of pattern after pattern after pattern of treating people poorly, of making choices that serve only themselves, of burning bridges and thinking there would be no consequences because they got away with it before. You were not their first victim, and you were not their last. And the Ten of Swords is showing me that the collective weight of all of those actions, all of those betrayals, all of those moments where they chose ego over integrity is now crushing them under its weight. Now, I want to address something that might be coming up for you as you hear this, because if you are a kind-hearted Gemini, if you are someone who does not naturally wish ill on others, even when they have hurt you deeply, you might be feeling a little conflicted about finding any satisfaction in someone else's downfall. You might be thinking that you should feel bad for them, that you should rise above and send them love and light, that celebrating their suffering makes you no better than they were when they hurt you. But here is what I want you to understand. This is not about celebrating someone else's pain for the sake of cruelty. This is about recognizing that there is a natural order to the universe. There is justice even when human courts and human judgment fail us. There is a balancing of scales that happens whether we participate in it or not. The Ten of Swords appearing for them is not your doing. This is not your manifestation. This is not some revenge spell you cast or karma you called down on them. This is simply the natural consequence of the energy they put out into the world coming back to them multiplied. The second card that came through is the Nine of Cups, and this is where the reading takes a really beautiful turn because the Nine of Cups is known as the wish fulfillment card, the emotional satisfaction card, the card of getting what you truly desire and feeling genuinely happy about your life. But the context here is crucial. This is not showing up for the person who hurt you. This is showing up for you. And what the cards are telling me is that while they are experiencing their Ten of Swords moment of complete defeat and painful endings, you are simultaneously moving into your Nine of Cups energy of deep satisfaction, emotional fulfillment, and having your genuine wishes granted by the universe. Do you see the beautiful symmetry here? Do you see how the universe is not just dealing with their karma, but also actively rewarding you for choosing the high road, for doing your inner work, for refusing to let what they did to you turn you into someone you are not? This is not just about them falling, this is equally about you rising. And the Nine of Cups is telling me that you are entering or have already entered a chapter of your life where things are finally clicking into place emotionally, where you are finally feeling genuinely happy and content in ways that do not depend on external validation or revenge, where the life you have been quietly building for yourself away from their toxicity is starting to bloom in the most beautiful and unexpected ways. Let me break down what the Nine of Cups means for you specifically in this context because this is so important. First and foremost, this is about emotional healing and emotional satisfaction at the deepest level after everything you went through, after the betrayal, after the attack, after feeling like maybe you were the problem or maybe you deserved it somehow. You have been doing the real work of processing your feelings, grieving what you lost, questioning yourself, and then coming to a place of real clarity about your own worth and your own truth. You are no longer carrying their version of events as your reality. You are no longer internalizing their judgment of you. You are no longer shrinking yourself because of what they said or did or tried to make you believe about yourself. The Nine of Cups often appears when someone has done deep emotional work and is now ready to actually receive and enjoy the fruits of that labor. You have earned this happiness, you have earned this peace, you have earned this feeling of satisfaction. And the universe is delivering it to you in ways that are both surprising and delightful. The Nine of Cups is also about wish fulfillment. And I am getting a really strong message that something you have been wanting, something you have been hoping for, something you maybe even gave up on at some point thinking it would never happen for you, is coming into your life now or in the very near future. This could be a new relationship that actually feels healthy and reciprocal, so completely different from whatever toxic dynamic you had with the person who hurt you, where you finally experience what it feels like to be with someone who celebrates you instead of competing with you, who builds you up instead of tearing you down. This could be a career opportunity or creative project that finally gets the recognition it deserves, especially if the person who hurt you had tried to sabotage your professional life or damage your reputation in your field or community. This could be a living situation or geographic move that brings you deep peace and happiness, particularly if you had to leave a place or community because of what happened and you have been rebuilding your sense of home and belonging. This could even be an internal shift where you finally feel comfortable in your own skin, where you finally stop second-guessing every decision you make, where you finally trust your own judgment and intuition again after having it undermined and questioned for so long by someone who wanted you to doubt yourself. Whatever form this takes for you personally, the Nine of Cups is promising that it is going to feel good, it is going to feel right, it is going to feel like the universe is finally on your side and things are working out in your favor in tangible, undeniable ways. The third card is Strength. And this is where I honestly get a little emotional, because Strength is such a powerful card and it is showing up here to tell you something really important about who you are and what you have actually overcome through all of this. The Strength card in tarot is not about physical strength or dominating others or fighting back in the traditional aggressive sense. It is about inner strength. It is about resilience. It is about the quiet courage it takes to keep going when everything in you wants to give up. It is about mastering your own reactions instead of being controlled by them. It is about choosing grace over retaliation. It is about having the fortitude to take the high road, even when the low road would be so much easier and so much more satisfying in the moment. Gemini, the fact that this card is showing up in your reading tells me that you have demonstrated this kind of strength throughout this entire ordeal. And even if you do not feel strong, even if there were moments where you broke down completely or wanted to give up or felt like you could not take one more day of the pain, the universe is acknowledging that you made it through, you are still here, you are still standing, you are still fundamentally yourself despite everything that was thrown at you. Let me tell you what I am seeing with the Strength card in the context of your specific situation, because this is so important for you to hear. When someone declares war on you, when someone attacks you, and walks away laughing like they won, the easiest thing in the world would be to become bitter, to become vengeful, to spend all your time and energy plotting their downfall or obsessing over what they did to you or trying to expose them or get even. And I am not saying you did not have moments of anger or fantasies of revenge. That would be completely normal and completely human, and there is no judgment about those feelings whatsoever. But the Strength card is showing me that you made a conscious choice at some point, maybe multiple times throughout this process, to not let what they did to you change who you fundamentally are at your core. You chose to process your anger in healthy ways rather than letting it consume you and turn you into a person you would not recognize. You chose to focus on your own healing and your own growth rather than staying attached to their story and their drama and their need for conflict. You chose to believe that the universe would handle what needed to be handled rather than taking matters into your own hands in ways that would compromise your integrity or lower you to their level. This is the essence of strength. This is what true power actually looks like. And I want you to really absorb this, because in a world that often glorifies aggression and retaliation and clapping back and getting even, choosing the path you chose is actually revolutionary. The Strength card is also telling me something about how you handled yourself during the worst of it, during the moments when this person or these people were actively coming at you, actively trying to provoke you, actively trying to get a reaction. There is an image in the traditional Strength card of a woman gently closing a lion's mouth, and the symbolism there is about mastering your own inner beast, your own reactive impulses, your own desire to lash out when hurt or threatened. I am getting the sense that there were probably moments where you could have said something absolutely devastating, where you could have exposed them or retaliated in ways that would have felt really good in the moment, where you had ammunition that you chose not to use. Not because you are weak, not because you did not have the ability to fight back, but because you understood on some deep level that engaging in that kind of warfare would only drag you down to their level, would only extend the conflict and keep you energetically tied to them, would only give them more power over your emotional state and your peace of mind. So you chose silence when silence was powerful, or you chose measured responses when you did respond, or you chose to simply walk away and let your absence speak for itself. And that choice, that demonstration of real strength, is part of why you are now in your Nine of Cups energy of happiness and fulfillment, while they are in their Ten of Swords energy of defeat and consequence. You took the high road, and the high road led you to genuinely higher ground, while they stayed in the mud, slinging and fighting dirty, and now they are drowning in the mess they created. There is also a message here about emotional regulation and not letting other people's chaos infect your peace. The person who hurt you was probably operating from a very chaotic energy, very reactive, very dramatic, lots of intensity and volatility, and needing everything to be a crisis or a battle. The Strength card is telling me that one of your biggest victories in all of this was refusing to match that energy, refusing to get sucked into the drama and the chaos, refusing to let their instability become your instability. The fourth card is the King of Wands, and this is absolutely fascinating because the King of Wands represents someone who is fully in their power, someone who is confident and charismatic and magnetic, someone who is capable of leading and inspiring others, someone who walks into a room and changes the energy just by being present. This card is showing up to tell you who you are becoming through all of this, or perhaps who you have always been underneath the wounds and the self-doubt and the questioning that this situation temporarily created in you. The King of Wands does not show up for people who are tentative or unsure of themselves or playing small. This is a card of bold self-expression and authentic leadership and owning your power unapologetically. And I am getting a really strong message that you are stepping into a version of yourself that is more powerful and more authentic and more magnetic than you have ever been before in your entire life. Sometimes it takes going through absolute hell, going through betrayal and attack, and a dark night of the soul to strip away all the false layers and all the people-pleasing and all the dimming of your light to reveal who you really are underneath all of that. And what is being revealed in you right now, what is emerging through the ashes of what you went through, is this King of Wands energy of unshakable confidence and magnetic presence and natural authority. Let me explain what I mean by stepping into your King of Wands energy because this is important. First of all, this is about no longer apologizing for who you are, no longer shrinking yourself to make insecure people comfortable, no longer dimming your light because someone else cannot handle your brightness or your success or your natural charisma. The person who hurt you probably had serious issues with your confidence, with your success, with your ability to attract positive attention and opportunities seemingly without effort. That is actually why they came at you in the first place. That is why they declared war on you, because your King of Wands energy was threatening to them on a very deep level. Maybe they felt inferior in comparison to you, and that made them want to tear you down to their level. Maybe they were jealous of what you had or what you were becoming, and they could not celebrate you, so they attacked you instead. Maybe your natural growth and evolution highlighted their own stagnation, and they could not handle that mirror being held up to their face. So they tried to tear you down. They tried to make you doubt yourself and your abilities and your worth. They tried to extinguish your fire and make you believe that you were too much or not enough or somehow fundamentally flawed. But here is the thing about real fire. When you try to stomp it out, if it is genuine fire and not just smoke and mirrors, it comes back even stronger than before. And that is exactly what is happening for you right now. You went through a period of doubting yourself and questioning yourself and maybe even dimming your light for a little while to avoid further attack. But that was temporary. That was just you catching your breath and healing your wounds. The King of Wands energy is reasserting itself now, and you are coming back into full expression of who you really are. Except now you have even more power than before, because you know from direct experience that your light cannot be extinguished by anyone else's darkness or jealousy or attacks. The King of Wands is also about leadership and influence. And I am seeing that you are going to be or already are in a position where you are inspiring others, where your story matters to people, where people look to you as an example of how to handle adversity with grace and come out stronger on the other side. This could be literal leadership in your career or in your community, stepping into roles that have more visibility and more responsibility and more impact. Or this could be more informal, where friends and family and even acquaintances see how you navigated this situation and they learn from your example. They see that it is possible to be hurt deeply and still choose healing over bitterness. They see that taking the high road actually works in the long run, even when it feels impossibly hard in the moment. The fifth card is the Six of Swords, and this is such a perfect card for where you are right now, because the Six of Swords is all about transition, about moving away from turbulent waters into calmer waters, about leaving behind what no longer serves you and heading toward better horizons with intention and awareness. This card often shows up when someone has been through an incredibly difficult period and is finally ready to move forward. When the worst is genuinely over and healing is beginning in earnest. When you can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel and you are actively moving toward it with every choice you make. What I love about the Six of Swords appearing in this reading is that it confirms that you are not stuck in the past anymore. You are not still fighting the old battles in your mind. You are not still emotionally entangled with the person who hurt you or needing anything from them to feel complete. You have made the decision, whether consciously or unconsciously, to move on with your life in a real and meaningful way. And the universe is supporting that decision by creating pathways forward that feel clear and navigable, even when the journey is not always easy. Let me paint a picture of what the Six of Swords looks like in your specific situation, because this imagery is so powerful. Imagine you have been in stormy waters for what feels like forever. Waves crashing over you constantly, not sure if you are going to make it to shore, exhausted from treading water and fighting the current, and just trying to survive each day. That was the height of your conflict with this person. That was the period right after the betrayal or attack, when you were actively in pain and confusion and trying to make sense of what happened and why. But at some point, maybe gradually or maybe suddenly, you found a boat or a boat found you, and you climbed in and you started rowing away from the storm with whatever energy you had left. That is where you are now. The waters are not completely calm yet. There are still ripples and small waves. You can still see the storm behind you if you look back, but you are moving away from it steadily, and the conditions are improving with every stroke of the oar, with every day that passes, with every choice you make that prioritizes your own well-being over the past. The Six of Swords is telling me that you are in a sacred transition period. You are between the worst of what happened and the best of what is coming. And even though this in-between space might feel uncertain or uncomfortable sometimes, it is actually really important, because this is where the real transformation happens. You are shedding old skin, old patterns, old beliefs about yourself that were formed in trauma and pain, and you are discovering or rediscovering who you are without those wounds defining every aspect of your life and your choices. The Six of Swords is also about carrying forward the lessons without carrying forward the pain itself. And this is such a delicate and important distinction. When we go through something traumatic, when we are betrayed or attacked by someone we trusted or cared about, there is valuable wisdom that comes from that experience if we are willing to learn from it. We learn discernment about who we can trust and who we cannot. We learn what our boundaries need to be and how to enforce them. We learn what we will and will not tolerate in relationships moving forward. We learn about our own capacity for resilience and survival that we maybe did not know we had. The Six of Swords says, take all of those lessons with you. Let them inform your future choices and make you wiser and more careful and more selective about who you let into your inner circle. But leave the pain itself behind as much as you possibly can. Do not let the bitterness and the trauma response come with you into your new chapter. Do not let what happened to you in the past dictate how you show up in every new relationship and every new opportunity with automatic fear and mistrust. The sixth and final card is the Five of Swords, and this is really interesting because the Five of Swords is often seen as a challenging card. It is about conflict and hollow victories and winning battles through underhanded means, about someone who is willing to fight dirty and burn bridges to get what they want in the moment. But the context here is absolutely crucial, because I am seeing this card showing up specifically to describe the person who hurt you, to describe their so-called victory over you that was never really a victory at all in any meaningful sense. Let me explain what I mean by this. When this person declared war on you and attacked you and walked away laughing, in that immediate moment, it probably looked to everyone, including you, like they had won. They got what they wanted in that situation, whether that was hurting you to make themselves feel powerful, taking something from you that you valued, making themselves look good at your expense, eliminating you as competition or as a perceived threat to their position or status. From the outside, from their perspective, and maybe from the perspective of people who did not know the full story, they probably looked and felt victorious. They probably felt powerful and vindicated and justified in whatever narrative they told themselves about why they had to do what they did to you. But the Five of Swords is telling me in no uncertain terms that their victory was completely hollow. It was empty. It was built on manipulation and destruction and being willing to compromise their integrity. And that kind of victory cannot sustain itself over time because it has no real foundation. The Five of Swords shows someone who won through underhanded tactics, through being willing to fight dirtier than their opponent, through having fewer scruples and fewer boundaries about what they were willing to do to get what they wanted. In the traditional imagery of this card, there's a figure holding multiple swords looking smug and self-satisfied while defeated figures walk away in the background. But if you look closely at the so-called victor in that image, there is no real joy on their face. There is no genuine satisfaction or peace, just a kind of empty smugness and arrogance that barely covers up deep insecurity and hollowness. This is the exact energy of the person who hurt you. Yes, they got their moment of feeling superior. Yes, they got to walk away laughing at your pain. Yes, they got to see you wounded and struggling. But what did they actually win in the bigger picture? What did they gain that has any real lasting value? They won a fight that never needed to happen. They won by destroying something that could have been beautiful or at least neutral or peaceful. They won by making an enemy where there could have been a friend or ally or at minimum someone who was not actively working against them. And that kind of winning, that kind of victory that is built on destruction and ego and proving dominance, it corrodes the soul over time. It creates karmic debt that will eventually have to be repaid. It sets in motion energetic consequences that circle back whether we believe in that or not. The Five of Swords is also about the isolation that inevitably comes from being too aggressive, too competitive, too willing to burn bridges and betray people to get ahead. When someone operates primarily from Five of Swords energy, when they approach relationships and conflicts with a win at all costs mentality and no real consideration for the collateral damage they cause, they might get short-term victories, but they lose long-term connection and trust and community. I am getting a really strong message that the person who hurt you is experiencing exactly this kind of isolation right now as part of their Ten of Swords karmic return. The people who were around them and supported them and maybe even believed their version of events initially, those people are starting to see cracks in the facade. They are noticing patterns in how this person treats others. They are realizing that what happened with you was not some isolated incident, but part of a much larger pattern of behavior that this person has probably been demonstrating for years. So Gemini, let me bring all of this together for you because each of these cards is powerful on its own, but together they tell such a complete and satisfying story. You are someone who was attacked, who had war declared on them by a person who should have been on your side or at minimum should have been neutral. That person walked away from the destruction they caused feeling victorious and confident that they had won whatever battle they imagined they were fighting with you. But you, instead of retaliating in kind, instead of becoming bitter and vengeful and obsessed with getting even, instead of letting what they did fundamentally change who you are at your core, you chose the path of strength. You did your inner work even when it was painful and lonely. You processed your feelings instead of acting them out destructively. You kept your integrity intact when it would have been so much easier to compromise it. You stayed true to yourself and your values even when you were hurting. And because you chose that path, because you took the high road even when the low road looked tempting, you are now moving powerfully into your Nine of Cups, energy of genuine happiness and wish fulfillment and emotional satisfaction. Your life is objectively getting better. Your relationships are healthier and more authentic. Your sense of self is stronger and more grounded. You are surrounded by people who genuinely love and support you for who you actually are. The Six of Swords shows you an active transition away from the pain of that difficult period and toward a much brighter future, carrying forward all the wisdom and lessons, but leaving behind the heaviness and the bitterness that could have so easily consumed you. You are stepping into your King of Wands power in ways that are going to positively impact not just your own life, but the lives of people around you who need to see your example of resilience and grace. And while all of this beautiful growth and healing is happening for you, while you are rising and thriving and building something real, the person who hurt you is simultaneously experiencing their own karmic reckoning, their Ten of Swords moment of complete defeat and painful consequence, their Five of Swords realization that their victory was hollow and meaningless and actually cost them more than they gained, their increasing isolation as people see them clearly and choose to step back. This is not your doing. This is not revenge that you orchestrated. This is simply the universe balancing the scales the way it always does eventually, making sure that everyone receives the energetic consequences of their choices, whether positive or negative. You chose healing and growth and integrity, so you are receiving happiness and success and genuine connection. They chose destruction and ego and shortcuts, so they are receiving emptiness and defeat and isolation.